So back a year ago, and I'll tell you a little bit about this in a minute, but last year, right in the middle of this pandemic, I had an amazing idea to write a book. And because that's what we do during national crisis. So wrote a book, and the more research that I did, and the more just like getting in there, getting my hands dirty in my own mental health practice, I realized that a lot of us, and me especially in the past, and a lot of the clients that I was working with in a consulting capacity, we were kind of overthinking things. We were just doing a lot of things, not necessarily wrong, but we were just working harder than we needed to. And the big realization was that if we just treat our business with the same kind of framework that we use to treat our patients or our clients, we would have much better outcomes and actually just feel a lot more confident about being an entrepreneur in general. So that's why I'm here today, is to talk a little bit about this and to hopefully teach a few strategies that will resonate with you as a provider in some healthcare capacity, so that you can feel more confident about running your business and making more money. So I've got Emily, my sidekick. You can't see her. If you could, she would probably be making faces at me right now. But she is in charge of the slide deck. So if you hear me like yelling at her or like doing some kind of weird thing, it's probably because she's asleep and doesn't know that I want her to move those slides. Right, Emily? Yes, she's saying yes. So I don't know about you, but I'll give you a little bit of a heads up of what I'm going to cover. Now, I will say that some of the slides in this presentation are a little more lengthy and a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to go into speaking wise. And that is just because I know that sometimes people like to go back and review slides on their own, and people who are watching the replay may want to come back and get a little bit more information. So just know that there's a little bit more on the slides than you may hear me say, and that is on purpose. I'm not skipping it. But as far as today goes, I want to talk to you just briefly about how to prioritize your business to-do list. I know a lot of us have a lot of things to do and not a lot of time. And so I think knowing how to prioritize that to-do list is pretty important. I'm going to show you an adaptation to Mike Michalowicz's business hierarchy of needs and how we modified this for the healthcare industry. So we're going to look at the healthcare hierarchy of needs. And then we're going to look at the 3 foundational levels within that hierarchy. It's very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then I'm going to show you how to look at the 5 core needs in each one of those levels, which ultimately, when you put it all together and sprinkle some fairy dust on it, you're going to be able to diagnose your business, your practice, in the same way that you would diagnose a patient. And Matt, you just kind of stop me whenever you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say, good segue there. If you do have questions, please use the chat feature, which I think a lot of you already are. So that's awesome to see. Yeah, we will try to address them as they come up if possible. If it is something we'll talk about a little bit later during this conversation, we will address it then. If it's something we have to wait to the very end to do, we will do that as well, or at least do our best to do that as well. And also, I was so excited to let Kasey start and introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Matt Davidman. I'm Director of Partnerships at Blueprint. We are a mental health tech startup, really focusing around delivering an enhanced quality of care through the behavioral health process. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the end as well. But yeah, I almost forgot to say who I am. So hi, everybody. And are the slides available? I do believe we will make them available as a send out after the webinar. So good question to start. Thank you, Kasey.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, one of the biggest obstacles that I see that all business owners have, specifically in the mental health space, is time. I have never in my life seen business owners, practice owners that work harder than mental health professionals. I like to think it's because we're all just very self-aware, and, we're trained that way. And so we're always not necessarily being critical of ourselves, but we're just being very open to what are we doing well, where are the barriers, where are the gaps, and we really just give a lot of thought to what we're doing, which is a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing because it can get us in positions where we are overcommitted or overextended, and that sometimes causes us to feel anxious and can activate a fear response in us. Ultimately, we don't want to fail, and we want to do everything we can to prevent that, both for our client outcomes and for our business outcomes. And so one of the things that just gets in the way for so many people is time. And so I just wanted to start off this webinar by saying that I know that each and every one of you are here, and each and every one that has registered that will come back and watch the replay, you are doing that, and you are taking time out of your day because it matters to you, and because you are committed not only to your business, but to the clients that you are serving. And that is super important for just for me to recognize. And with that being said, the reason that it is so important, and I have interviewed, I don't even know, like probably maybe 200, 300, I don't know, in the hundreds of mental health providers. And at the end of the day, they all have a purpose that is so strong, and they care, and they are committed to the contribution that they are trying to make in the world. They want to make the world a better place, but they want to make people happier and healthier, and they're just committed to people in general. And I think that that's what keeps us going, and why we choose those late nights and those all-nighters sometimes, and why we're going to every webinar or reading every business book that we possibly can.
I will say too, Kasey, I think that's one of the reasons I'm most excited about being in this field as well, not from the clinical side or the owner side, but really from the support and enablement side, is because in speaking, I think similar with you, with hundreds of owners, there's just such an emphasis on I'm here to help people. It's not about necessarily my business or getting rich or anything like that. It's my purpose is to help. And then it's exciting that like great people like you and how we can help differently as well, as really trying to help kind of take that step back. Is you have put everything, you put your whole being into being this clinician and growing a practice, and going from most likely a clinically trained individual that is client focused first, to taking that step into it's now business focused. And how do I go from this goal of helping the community, helping the people, to helping myself, helping my team. I think that's one of the most exciting things about this field in particular, is the reason people came here is so different than a lot of other industries and experiences I've had personally, like in tech and in advertising once upon a time. It's just such a rewarding experience to be with people that are so aware and open about why they got started, and also open about, hey, I know I need some help to get to where I know this business, this practice can be, to be even more beneficial. And I think that's the biggest step. I'm helping well today, I'm helping people. How can I help more people? That's the driver. It's not necessarily financial, but a lot of that kind of comes back to how do I grow? You need the finances to help grow and a lot of things like that. But it's how do I take the skill set and grow it to even be more of a benefit to the community, to the people I'm around. So I think, again, thank you for everyone on here, because it really is amazing what you do. And I love being able to kind of have these conversations around how can we help you get to that next level to do it even more.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so, I'm glad that you said that, because the next slide here is really, it's just acknowledging the fact that there is so much potential out there to be able to help people, but it seems like there's just something that gets in the way. And I know that the people on here know what that is, know at least what one of those things are, because that's what I keep talking about. But it really could be a lot of things. There's a lot of things that can get in the way. And some of the things that I notice the most often is that we say things like, well, we don't have enough money. So when people are looking at outsourcing certain things or adding certain platforms or products to their practice, they may say, well, I don't have enough money to do that. They may say that, I don't really have enough in cash reserves. I don't have enough saved. They may say, well, I'm having trouble with my billing, like your AR is out of control. And then some people may just say, hey, I just can't. Like I'm literally putting out fires all day long. I don't know if I'm coming or if I'm going. I'm just working through a to-do list. I just can't see the forest for the trees. You know, there's all these things that they're caught in the chaos. And so that's really where that problem, where we're always trying to figure out, hey, what's the problem? So go ahead, Emily. I talk really fast. So she actually has a terrible job right now to try to keep up with this. She's going to kill me afterwards, and I know that those are just probably a handful of the reasons that each of you are taking time out to be here today. And the reason that I'm taking time out to be here and that Matt is taking time out to be here is because I know, speaking for myself, I know I can help. At least if I can help you get just a little bit of your time back or just a little bit of your sanity back, that is my goal. So I don't know about you, but I think that's probably your goal too. Okay, so I'll just give you a really quick background. I'm Kasey. I know a lot of you on the call. I see a lot of you that are in our systemizer school right now, so I'm so glad that you're here. I am a licensed professional counselor. I graduated back in 2009. I immediately started my own practice, realized that I did not have a freaking clue what I was doing, so went into a nonprofit organization, worked there for a while, learned some skills, and then went back and opened the practice again for real that time. From there, I moved into more of a consultant role that was really focused and still is focused mostly on systems, how to help people achieve efficiency and order and all of those great things that we need to operate our business with a little bit of sanity. And then from that, we created Mindset Partners, which is an expert-led membership program that takes the staff and people in my actual group practice and uses them not just to run the group practice, but also to help support all these other practice owners across the country who need support in their different types of systems, billing, clinical, HR, hiring, front desk, back office, all those types of things. Oh, and as I mentioned at the beginning, I can now say the word author. It still feels really weird, but I did, thank you. Wrote Fix This Next for healthcare providers last year during the pandemic, launched it this year on July 19th. We've had an amazing response. People that are reading the book, they're emailing, they're talking about all of the interventions that they're using in their practices. And it's just been really wonderful to see the outcome that has come from that. So that's what I'm going to do today, is just give you some little snapshots to some of the strategies and skill sets that we're teaching within Fix This Next for healthcare providers. So hopefully you'll still read the book, but if you don't want to read the book, you can at least get a lot of the content from today, and you'll get on even more in the slides. So one of the things that we say throughout the book is your business is like a patient. You just have to treat it that way. So you have to remember that going forward, and knowing that you are more capable than you realize of running this business, of running this practice. And it's not always like you have to go out and find new skill sets or learn new things. Sometimes you just have to kind of pull back in and learn and pull from what you've already learned and what you already know. I'm not going to go over this, but I just wanted to put this in the slide deck, because this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is basically what the framework for Fix This Next for healthcare was built upon. And what we're saying here, and you can go on, Emily, because I'll come back to this, but what we're saying here is if the foundation of your business is not solid, then it's going to be hard to grow the business, because if you build on a weak foundation, everyone knows what happens. It's going to come crumbling down. And so what we have determined is that the foundational piece of your business is actually in sales. Now, I know how that might feel to some people, and the ones that are on here right now, like I think I saw Heather on here and Zoe on here. And if you're on here, you've heard me say this, and this is not going to feel slimy to you, but if you don't know me and I'm sitting here talking about sales in a healthcare business, you're probably going to think this person is gross. Really not gross. And sales doesn't always just mean sales. Sales means people and leads, clients coming into your business in some capacity. And so the thought process behind that is, if we don't have a consistent funnel of new clients coming into the practice and new employees coming into the practice, then there's really no possible way we're ever going to achieve profit. And if we can't achieve profit, how are we ever going to achieve order? So that is really why sales is the foundational component of your practice. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that here in just a second. So things you're going to want to try to remember, there's 3 foundational levels. So that means there's basically 3 components to your business. You have a sales component, you have a profit component, and you have an order component. And order pretty much just means your systems, how things are working for you. And then within those 3 levels, you're going to have 5 core needs. So if you're a math person, even if you're not, 3 times 5 is 15. So there's going to be 15 things that you're going to watch for on a regular basis in your practice when you're running your business. Again, this is just for a reiteration of sales is the creation of cash. Profit is the creation of permanence, and order is the creation of efficiency. Now, I'm not going to go over this, and you're going to have this in the slide deck. And I believe there's even a QR code at the end of the webinar that will allow you to download this HHN assessment for your use later on. So what you do is, after you know that your business has these 3 foundational levels, then the way that you prioritize your to-do list in your business. So what do I need to do first? That's what most people will ask me, is I have all of these things going on. How do I know what to do first? Well, this is how you figure that out. So you go through this assessment starting at the sales level, and you ask yourself each one of these questions. So for example, in that sales level, the first question is lifestyle congruence. Do you know what your billable sessions or services must be in order to support your personal financial comfort level? How many sessions does your practice need to have? How much money do you need to make? That's basically what that means. If you don't know that answer, it's going to be very difficult for you to grow your practice in a way that's going to meet those needs for you. You have to know what you're looking for in order to set yourself up for success. So you continue to ask yourself each one of these questions, and you're going to say yes or you're going to say no. Now, what you're going to do is the yes that you answered, if you say yes, then that means good. If you say no, that does not mean you're bad, or that does not mean your practice is failing. It actually is normal, and you should answer no to one or many of these things. But you're going to take the no that you scored on the lowest foundational level, and that is going to be where you start. So for example, if you answered yes to lifestyle congruence, the second one, which is prospect attraction, you answered yes to client conversion, you answered no to delivering on commitments, and you answered yes to collecting on commitments, then that means that you have an identified need in your sales level on delivering on commitments. And so that is really where you need to put your focus. If you can strengthen the weakest area, the weakest core need on the lowest level, then you will be able to achieve more strength and stability in your practice. Now, I'll just say this too. Delivering on commitments is one that's very easy for people to say, oh yeah, sure, we do that. If I ask you right now, do you treat your clients well? I'm sure every single person is going to say, well, of course we do. But if I start asking you more and more questions, I think I'm probably going to get more and more no's, because this is one of the core needs that people miss. This is like, have you ever been to a doctor's office and you've had to sit in the waiting room for like an hour and a half and you're just mad? You're just really mad. And then by the time you get back there to see the doctor, you have to wait another 45 minutes and you're like, what the heck? Like, why? You have that is a delivering on commitments issue. That is a problem in your sales level. If you hire a therapist and you advertise that your therapists are outcomes based and they are trained in, let's say, EMDR, and they are focused on trauma outcomes, and that they can help you achieve hope and peace and all of these things, but you have no way to measure that, and you're just saying that because that's what you want to happen, but you really don't know that that's happening, that's a delivering on commitments issue. You have to be able to track those things, which is why whenever I talked to Emily and Claire and Matt about Blueprint, I was like, okay, this is perfect, because we can't just say we're going to do something and then not have any way to track it. And especially whenever we're talking about clinical issues, sometimes we get really comfortable with putting those issues behind the door and on the couch. And as practice owners, we don't really know what goes on in session, but yet we still create all of our marketing materials like we do. Yet we still interview new clinicians like we do. We tell them how great we are and how much impact we're making, but do we really know? So that is a delivering on commitments issue. And this is how you prioritize your to-do list.
I think it's interesting you go with that one, especially as time is the biggest obstacle to this, and that I think being able to show that you do make that impact on your clients is probably one of the more time-consuming things you can do. I agree, it needs to be done. You should be able to prove this both to yourself as an owner, to support your clinicians. If your caseload as I'm your supervisor, you're saying it's good, how do we actually confirm that? How can we dive deeper? And not necessarily that if your outcome is, hey, you're not as efficient as you think you are, that's not necessarily bad. That's an opportunity to improve at the clinical level. That's a chance to improve your entire team and to really get back to delivering on those commitments that you talked about. And I think that's another area that I get excited about as in this field is time is one of the biggest obstacles to measuring outcomes. And Blueprint and a lot of different options out there can really support that. And that goes to that system level you're talking about, is how do we implement consistent strategies and technology and support to do this and to scale it, to grow it, to support your business. And there are options out there, and it's exciting that these conversations are coming up more and more. It's not a hush hush thing we keep in the background. We don't talk about. We're almost ashamed to say, hey, we don't really know what we're doing, but we're gonna say we're doing great. So now it really is this new exciting push forward that we can really help visualize. I think in data visualization is a huge part of this. Is you can actually see the data as it's coming back from your clients, to interpret it, to make it easy interpretations of it as well. So I think as you continue on, we can get more to that system level, that there are options that can push back into the other levels of that hierarchy to really support those different areas to be able to answer yes to those questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's something too. This is a little bit of a personal example, but many of us, the reason that we're here on these calls and on these webinars is, one, we want to run our business better, but we also want to grow, like we want to see what we can do. And for me, whenever I was in that initial startup phase of my group practice, that clinical system was really where I started first. It was, hey, like, we're small, there's only 2 of us, we're going to do the best work we can possibly do. We're going to help clients get well, we're going to help them feel better, we're going to help them go on to have better lives. And with 2 of us, I could control that. I could manage that. I could have actual conversation with the other clinician. There's just so much more control we had over that situation. Before I knew it, we went from, a couple $100,000 a year practice to $1.2 million in less than 12 months. And I had 12 therapists. And then I really felt like, how am I going to control this now? And back when I started, I don't think Blueprint was a thing. I don't even think that was an option. And so I will admit there was a point, and I'm not saying that we didn't do good clinical work, because we did, but I couldn't prove it necessarily. But there was a point in time during that growth phase that I think a lot of us are in, that we kind of dropped the ball in the clinical component of our systems. because we just don't know. It's not like in our face, like the numbers are, and like the billing, and like the profit margins are. It just takes more time. It takes more time to sift through it. And so I think, and I'm sure you'll talk more about this, Matt, but I think that having something like this, like something that is measurable and can measure these outcomes and these changes over our clients' treatment, will give us much more of an informed way to make decisions about the different levels in our practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So real quick, these are the 5 core needs in your sales level. I already mentioned lifestyle congruence. Another thing specific to healthcare providers is prospect and provider attraction. Most people either struggle with too many clients, not enough providers, or too many providers, not enough clients. So sometimes it's hard to balance those two things. So that is also found in that sales level. Client conversion is a big one. This is, are we attracting enough of the right clients? We can attract clients all day long, but if they're not the right clients for the type of practice that we have and the type of systems that we have, it's probably not going to do much to help us. The fourth is delivering on commitments, which is what I just mentioned, how we have to basically do what we say we're going to do. And then the fifth is collecting on those commitments. Are we getting paid? Do you have systems in place to get paid? That's sort of a little bit important.
I have a question for you, actually, Kasey. When you were starting up the practice and growing it as rapidly as you did, how were you able to really identify, or were you identifying I have not found a better way to describe them besides problem clients, the ones that, if I had 10 clients of mine and I said, hey, I want you to do this worksheet and do this one activity outside of session. Were you really able to kind of predict, like, I know these 6 or 7 are going to do it. These 3, I'm probably not going to get the result I want out of. And then how were you able to address that with them directly? Or was it kind of a wait and see what they said in session and then kind of go from there?
So yeah, at that point in the small growing phase, it was really just perceptions. There wasn't like I didn't have any tool to help me predict these things. But if you're a therapist and you're doing this kind of work, you just know, which clients are going to do the work, which ones aren't. For me, I'm pretty direct when it comes. I don't see clients anymore personally, but when I did, I was pretty directive in a lot of ways, especially when it came to non-compliance and if it was going to affect the outcome of their treatment. And so those clients, I would just point blank say, hey, look, I know you're probably not going to want to do this, but I really need you to do this because this is part of your treatment plan. You'll thank me later. It was kind of one of those things. But again, just like with the other situation, as we grew, I felt like as a practice owner that I really lost control of that area. And then not only are you trying to, how would you even do that without some kind of a tool? I don't even know how. You would really have to rely on your clinicians and then hold them accountable in a way that is going to require a lot of work and a lot of mental energy to hold however many clinicians you have accountable for however many clients they have on their caseload, which could be a lot. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
And also, we have kind of talked around Blueprint and what we do. We're going to say that to the end. We want to make sure that we really put the focus on what Kasey's message is today and how we can really approach solving these problems at the practice level. We will say sometime then to dive more into Blueprint. We're not trying to make it vague or anything. We just really want to stay focused on the initial topic. Before we get to the end, we'll dive a lot deeper into how Blueprint is able to help with a lot of these problems. But yeah, back to you, Kasey.
Sure. Okay, so once you have a strong and secured sales level, so let's say that you answer yes to all of those questions in the sales level, that sales level is shored up, it's strong, it's secure, then you move on to the profit level, which comes next. And so the 5 core needs in the profit level are debt eradication. And this is, are you constantly removing debt rather than accumulating it? There's nothing wrong with debt when you are growing a business, but you really just have to think about how quickly am I going to hold on to this debt and what am I doing to eradicate it? So and that really comes back to your ROI. Like how quickly can I get an ROI on this investment? And so that's a big one that I look for. In the very beginning, I was like anti-debt. Plus my credit sucked because I had never owned a business before. I was young. I had gone through a really hard financial situation, and like debt wasn't even an option for me. So I tell the story, I think I tell the story in the book about how I legitimately had $600 and I went to my family's like garages and I was begging for furniture. I painted the furniture, I cleaned the furniture, I did all these things just to put it together to create an office in the first place. So I started with zero debt. Now, 6 years later, debt does not scare me. I will gladly take it if I think I can get an ROI on it quickly. But in this profit level, that's the one thing that you want to evaluate first is, do you have debt? And are you working to remove it rather than acquire it? The second core need is margin health. This is huge. This is really well done in other industries. And one of the things that I like to do is compare the mental health practices to other industries to see how they look at a lot of these core needs in their industries as it relates to ours. So, we're never going to make a healthy net profit if each one of the services that we are offering do not have healthy profit margins. So I can't have, okay, here we go, back to the hot dogs. I cannot have a hot dog stand and 3 out of my 4 hot dogs, let's say I only make a 5% margin on, and then I have this 4th hot dog that I make a 50% margin on. So you know as well as I do back from elementary school that if you have a medium profit margin of 50%, and then you throw in there a 5%, what is that 5% profit margin going to do to your somewhat healthy 50% profit margin? It's going to drag it down. And so what we have to do, sometimes we think about like fixing big things in the practice, but in this core need, what we have to think about is let's like pick apart every single thing that we offer and let's figure out what is the profit margin on each one of those offerings, because it might just be that one of those offerings isn't really worth it. So what if we got rid of the 3 hot dogs that we were only getting a 5% profit margin on and only sold the ones that we were getting a 50% profit margin on? How much more money would we make? A whole lot more. So margin health is a big one. The third core need is appointment frequency. This is also a big one. This is where we get into what Emily and I like to call the more, not Mormon, but more mentality. We think we need more clients to have a healthy business, and that's not always true. Sometimes we just need to work with what we've got. And what we need to do is go back in and look at our caseloads, look at our client list, and figure out how we can better serve those clients and spend our money and our resources and our time and our energy on those clients instead of going out here and bringing on brand new clients all the time. The fourth core need is profitable leverage. And that is kind of similar back to number 1, but when debt is it used to generate predictable increased volume and profitability? So if I told you, hey, if you give me $1, I'll give you back $2. Would you do that? I think most people probably would. I mean, that's all you have to do is just hand me $1 and I'll give you back $2. That is profitable leverage. That is a way that you're getting a quick ROI, you're giving something and getting double. I mean, you can't beat that. Google Ads can be something that can be profitable leverage if done right, and if you are tracking them and you have measurement tools to check those things. And the last core need in the profit level, this is a biggie. This is number 5. It is cash reserves. Does your practice have enough cash reserves to cover all expenses for 3 months or longer? So in the book, and Fix This Next for Healthcare, we go into more detail about that and how to determine how much cash reserves you really need based on whether you are a prepay model, whether you are a pay when you get paid model, based on all the different types of practices that people typically have. So that is your profit level. Those are all of the needs that your business is going to have in a profit level. So this would be the same thing you would ask yourself each one of these questions, yes or no. And anything that you answer with a no is an identified need. This last level is the order level. And this is where the systems come into play. So if you are working on core needs in your order level, this means that everything in your sales and your profit level, all of those 10 core needs are shored up. You've answered yes to all of them. You're doing great. And now it's time to focus on order. Because remember, if we try to work on the order level without having a strong foundational level of sales or profit, it's just going to become a weak thing. And it's not gonna sustain. So this one is my favorite level. I like all the levels, but I like this one a lot. So there's 5 core needs here. And I'm going to tell you about those needs, and then I'm going to turn it over to Matt. And then the rest of all of the details about how to do the assessment, how to do all the stuff will be in the slides that you'll get in the replay. So the first core need is systemized. This one is, do you have a ongoing and working model to reduce bottlenecks, congestion points, and inefficiencies? So this is, if you are thinking about your practice like a machine, does it run, or does it get clogged up, or does it get stalled, or, all of those things? Like, does it run? That is what the first question is. Most people, unless they are actively systemizing their practice or have just finished, this is probably going to be a no. This is why we created Systemizer School, because this is hard and this gets people tripped up and it causes anxiety and frustration and fear, and people don't like it, but it's actually kind of fun. So that's the first one. The second core need is role alignment. Are people's roles and responsibilities matched with their talents? So I don't know about you, but if you put me in a position that I have to do something that I'm not very good at naturally, then that means I'm going to have to use more of my energy and more of my brain power, and I'm going to become tired, and it's just not going to be a good fit for me. So we have to make sure that our staff are really matched up to what they are good at and what they enjoy. That's where we're going to get the best outcomes. The third is outcome delegation. Now, if you are a control freak and you are in this webinar and you are not shy, I would love to know. So if you are a control freak and you want to stick it in the chat, I would just love to call you out for some accountability here. I know some control freaks in this room. I won't name you, but I know you're here because I know your name and I see you. But this one is outcome delegation. So the people that are closest to the problem have to feel empowered to resolve it. So for example, I can't tell Emily, hey, Emily, you're in charge of getting 200 people in Mindset Partners. And then there are naturally going to be problems with that, or we're going to have issues with our sales funnel or whatever. But then I say, you're responsible for getting 200 people in Mindset Partners, but you're actually not allowed to change anything. You have to keep everything the way it is. You can't change anything without asking me. That would be outcome delegation problem, because if someone does not feel empowered to solve a problem, then they're going to always revert back to whoever is, which is probably you as the owner. You're right, Chris. It is a control freak support group. It will always come back to you as the owner. And if it is coming back to you as the owner, guess what? Your business is not systemized, because that is the opposite of systemized. So that one is super important. The fourth core need is linchpin redundancy. Is your practice designed to operate unabated when critical employees are unavailable? And remember, this means you. Can you go for a month? Can you go for 8 weeks? And if no, then this would be a no. And the fifth one in the order level is problem-solving solutions. There is a story about this in the book, and I wish I had time to tell it, but I don't. But it is quite funny. If you think that your team are problem solvers naturally, you're probably wrong. And that is nothing against them at all. But most people are just not They're just not problem solvers. And if they are a problem solver, it's a really good possibility that their former place of employment did not encourage them to be problem solvers. They wanted things done a certain way, and they did not do all of the things in the order level. And so what we found is that sometimes people have a really hard time creating a model or a framework for solving problems that actually get a result. And so what we had to do within our group practice was give them a formula from which to solve problems that not only helped them solve the problems, but helped you as the practice owner hold your team accountable for solving those problems. Because what you don't want to happen in the order level ever is for the problem that has not been solved to come back to you as the owner, because that means it is not systemized. And so this is just a little reminder, and then I'll hush and let Matt, where focus goes, energy flows. And so we have to know what we are looking at and what our focus should be in our business's to-do list, so that we can make the most effective outcomes. And this is the exact same way that you would treat a patient, because when a patient comes into your practice and they sit on your couch and they give you, because you all know they give you 1,800 things that's going wrong in their life. And they want you to tell them where they should start. And so what you do is you don't treat the symptoms, you don't treat all the little things going on. You look for the core, you look for the root of the problem, and you start there. And so that's what Fix This Next for Healthcare does. That's what that HHN does. It helps you find the root of the problem so you can eliminate that problem, let all the other little symptoms of that problem fall away, and then you can hone in and focus even more on the real needs that needs to happen in your practice. I'm good.
Love it. Some laughs on our side about the 18,000 things or 1,800 things, whatever that things are going wrong. And please tell me, where do I start? So no, I love that. And Chris, also good to see you, I guess. Again, I'm not sure what the expression is when I see you typing into a Zoom chat, but good to see your name, I guess. And sorry, I think we have one more slide, Kasey. I did not mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead. These are just some free resources anyone can log on to, just kaseycompton.com/FTN. And there's a quick start. You can download a gazillion things. You can download behind the scenes content. You can download videos from Mike. There's all kinds of stuff, and it's all free.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kasey. Thank you, everybody, for being here today as well. And I think it's exciting for me to go now, as we've kind of talked loosely about Blueprint, and you've heard us mentioned a few times, and really how we fit into the hierarchy on a lot of what Kasey was just talking about. So with that, though, we'll talk a little bit about what Blueprint is. So go into that next slide, please, Emily. Actually, we'll skip this one, but in short, you all know this. I don't think this should be a surprise to anybody on this slide. So as I say skip, I will talk about it for a second, of course. Demand is at an all-time high for behavioral health, mental health support. And I think it's it's exciting time because that stigma that generally precluded people from seeking help is very much, if not fully gone, the least it's ever been in my experience, in my opinion. So that demand is up. And I think that's a great place to be, that the demand is there, but how do we actually support those clients? How do we keep our therapists engaged? How do we keep bringing on new therapists, keeping the ones we have excited? And then how do we tailor to this new client expectation? Digital is here. And I think mental health, the therapy process is kind of that last bastion of healthcare to really kind of generally exclude technology in very different forms. And that's really how Blueprint kind of came to be. We are a measurement-based care platform. We have streamlined the overall delivery of assessments like the PHQ-9, and then we'll go to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I forgot we had one more slide. There's a lot of obstacles and there's a lot of reasons why those challenges before are difficult. We're going to power through this slide for real, Emily. We'll not talk about it again, I swear. Perfect. So that's really why Blueprint kind of is built into what it has become today. And it really started off as a way for clients to kind of give their thoughts and have a conversation through an AI tool about their feelings, how they are, what they're going through, to bring back to their clinicians. And that was the big realization, is that you can target the client, but really to support them, that data, that insight needs to get back to the clinician. And that led our CEO, Danny Free, to partner with Dr. Russell Dubois, who is our clinical lead, to really come up with this system that there are things out there, assessments, measures like the PHQ-9, GAD-7, that if done in a scalable way that we can consistently collect them and then chart them and show those changes over time, that can really impact the overall treatment outcome success for clients. So through that mechanism, that core of measurement-based care, we really learned a lot along the way. We started as a client-focused tool, support clinicians, really focused on the clinical process. But the more we started working with practices and getting to know people like Kasey, we really learned that there is this kind of part of mental health care that we really do support in different areas. So like the first thing Kasey was talking about, how do we know we're actually delivering what we say we're delivering to our clients, to our community? It's very much kind of, I'm good because my clients say they feel better, so they do feel better. Is that gonna convince your Blue Cross Blue Shields of the world, your Aetna Cignas, that you're actually doing it? Probably not at this point. There's a lot of talk, and some payers are already requiring that population outcomes, actual data showing change in progress, be required. Telegen in Chicago, I believe, is one of them, where you actually have to show that there is change through measure. And that's really what Blueprint helps to do in that regard. We can actually take not just the per client data, and we collect this through an app, through a text and email workflow, all HIPAA compliant, and a lot of automation built in, where once the assessments are selected, they're going to go out on the same cadence, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, whatever you want. It's always going to be delivered at the same time. So you can really make sure your client is completing that information to get it back, to be able to show the results, both to the payer, to the community, and to yourself. I think we were talking about this as a supervisor. When you have 2-3 clinicians, it's easy. You know who everyone is. You're probably working with them very frequently. As you grow, it does get a little bit harder to understand, hey, new provider, you have a caseload. I don't really know how they're doing. I'm a little bit removed now. I'm focusing on the business side. So this way you can actually use that clinician level data of their aggregate data across their caseload to really dive in to say, hey, you either are doing great or you're doing great in, let's say, depression, and clients that are focused on depression, but anxiety, trauma, other related symptoms, we can really use some work on how you're working with your clients on that. So that's the way we can really help deliver on that first need of, how are we delivering on our promises, or how are we showing we're delivering? And then excitingly, I think this goes into the generating cash side, the profit margins, the cash reserves. A lot of the payers in the industry are actually paying on a per measure basis. So we can really help grow that top line revenue. At scale, which is the hard part of this. It's easy to deliver one PHQ-9. Here's a piece of paper. I can do this for one client. That's a couple of minutes. As you grow to this, as you have 10, 20 clinicians that are doing hundreds of these per week, that's where automation and technology, again, are really going to come in to help. So we can help scale the practice of submitting for the reimbursements for this for your in-network providers. I'm sure some of you might be self-pay, so I do apologize. This does not apply to you, unfortunately. But for the in-network ones, the ones on the panels, you can submit for reimbursements. You get a little bit more, about $3 to $5 per measure, which again, on a per measure basis, not that much. But if you think about scaling this across hundreds and maybe thousands of clients, depending on your group, that's really where you can bring in additional revenue, help grow that profit line, really increase the margins, and help support your community. I think, and what I said before, I think in the intro, is it's so exciting that a lot of what we do in terms of driving additional revenue for our practice and having more money on hand really goes directly back into client support. And honestly, some of that does go, and some of our partners currently are going to paying their clinicians more, which I think is a huge value. You need to retain, you need to keep your therapists, the ones that you've trained and supported and worked with along the way, and a great incentive for them to continue to deliver that exceptional level of care is more money in their paycheck. It is a truth of the world, but it is a great incentive, and it is being incentivized for doing the right kind of practice. You are showing that you're having positive outcomes on your client. Therefore, the payers are incentivizing you to do it the right way. And I think it's an amazing experience where, everything lines up, that by doing the right thing and by supporting your clients in the best way possible, you are appropriately being compensated more. And I think that's such an exciting aspect of what measurement-based care has to offer. I will say from Blueprint, I think one of the other areas we really put a focus in is there are a ton of assessments out there. In our library of what you'll have access to is about 130 different measures. Mentioned the PHQ-9, the GAD-7, I think the two most common ones. There's significantly more than that. There are symptom specific like trauma, anger, addiction, substance abuse. And we really want to make sure that it's not just access to them through technology, but we're going to really put a focus on training your clinical team on how to use them appropriately as a clinician in session. I think that's another thing that goes to how do we support and retain our clinicians? How do we keep the ones that have shown that they are invested in us, invested in a practice? We grow their toolkit. We make them and we empower them to be even better clinicians than they are by training and ongoing support. And I think I also asked Kasey this as a somewhat leading question, you might have guessed, of how do you identify those clients that you know are not necessarily going to be the good ones for your practice, that aren't committed to their process, that are going to no-show to appointments, they're not going to cancel, they're not going to do what you ask of them. Again, through our technology and through our dashboard that you can certainly go to our website, you'll see the link in a second. You're really able to see, are they doing the work outside of session that I'm asking them? And again, it goes back to that data visualization. How do I see this? You'll be able to see it really directly that they're not completing their worksheets. They're not completing these measures. And maybe, and Kasey, I'm sure would love to have that conversation with them about, you're not doing this and I know it, let's have this talk. I think some clinicians might be a little more passive than that, and that's okay. But it really empowers your clinicians to say, hey, you're not doing what we ask of you. You're not showing up to your meetings. You're actually hurting our ability to help other people. And now we can identify that and really get ahead of it, which I think is incredibly important. We always want to put the focus on this client did their assessments, they did the worksheets, their DBT, CBT, ACT-specific worksheets, whatever modality you might focus in, and now they're doing better and we can show them their progress, and that's awesome. And that's amazing, and that's really what Blueprint was kind of built for. And then we also have that other aspect of, hey, you're not doing the work we're asking for you, and maybe that's a separate conversation about discharging that client and bringing on someone new to reduce those wait lists. We also have therapeutic alliance measures, which I think I'm excited that is becoming more and more of a common conversation. Therapeutic alliance is a huge predictor of overall treatment success. And sometimes it's important to know, just like your client might not be doing the work you're asking for them to do, that, hey, maybe this relationship between me, the clinician, and you, the client, we're just not going to meet in the middle. We're just not going to be great for each other. And that's fine. That is okay. You can help 99% of people, but there's still gonna be 1% of that population that, hey, it's just not the right fit for you. And that's not bad. And again, you can maybe move them to a different clinician within your practice. You can tell them, hey, maybe there's another area that you should focus in and go meet with a different group. That does give you the opportunity to keep bringing in the clients, as Kasey was saying, that are the good ones for your group, that are going to do and provide the value for your group as you're providing the therapeutic value for them. And again, all of this kind of goes through our process of automation and kind of the back end technology that empowers this. So that once your client really starts this process, they're going to get a reminder to their phone, whether it's through the app, a text, or an email. It's going to happen outside of session. You're going to be able to track these results, see them. And what we found really exciting is it's kind of a shift in how you start your session. Hey, how have you been since last we spoke, since we last met? Have you done what I asked you? And now it's more, hey, we can actually see, I'm going to turn on my computer or do a screen share, depending on where we are in the world these days. And I'm going to show you on a graph that is really simple to see that you are improving. And I think that's such a powerful thing with data visualizations, to really be able to see that there is this change in how the client is doing. And it empowers them to continue on that process, to really see that they can make progress and kind of better themselves throughout the overall treatment experience. So what you see on the screen now is our link to go to the website, I believe. I'm looking at my marketing person in the background who's hiding also off screen like Emily with a big thumbs up. So that'll take you to our website. You can learn a little bit more about Blueprint from there. You can take a virtual product tour. So you don't have to talk to me yet or anybody on the team here. You can really see what the platform looks like and then make your decision if you want to move forward from there to then meet with me and our awesome team. And what's great about this amazing partnership we have with Kasey is you get the first month at no cost. So really, it's a great way to kind of, if you're new to measurement-based care or you've already been doing measures by pen and paper or different methods, to really see kind of what that next step can take you when you really embrace what technology can do to provide scaling this across your entire practice and client population. So that is it for me. Any questions? I know we got a few minutes left, which is awesome. Chris, I feel like I can count on you for a question.
You may not want Chris's question. You never know what's
happening. So yeah, we'll give you all a minute to ask away. And if there are no questions, you get a few more minutes of Kasey and me chit chat, which who doesn't want that?
It's great. Hot dog.
Just like, please don't, guys.
And Emily's probably like chewing her nails. Like, oh my gosh, please don't say
I got rid of the stuff we knew they were going to talk about, and I got 3 minutes of just unscripted. But I will also like to say, Kasey, oh, here we go. Thank you, Joe. How can these questionnaires be reimbursed? Is that consistent across different insurances? Great question. There are CPT codes that are directly kind of related and appropriate to use for these, 96127 being generally the most common one we recommend. It is generally consistent across payers. Some of them do have same date of service versus, different date of service requirements. If your client takes the measure the same date as their appointment, they'll say that it should be a bundled, I forget the exact expression, but it's part of that session, even if it's different time of the day. So we can actually help kind of get ahead of that by when we send out the reminders, how we have some of the automation in the background, and our billing team, I'm pointing behind me because they're behind me, they're just in a different room, they're awesome at this. They can really take a huge deep dive, go into all of your payers, the different plans, really make sure that the different clients will be appropriately reimbursed for this based on what their insurance is. So in general, yes, it is generally consistent, but there is, of course, because it's insurance, a wonderful nuance along the way. Do we have the Edinburgh scale? Yes, I believe. Thank you, Claire. I love having marketing people on these calls. They can just secretly in the background give me a thumbs up. Yes, we do. CG, and if I mispronounce your name, I do apologize. Most of these products are meant for large agencies. How does Blueprint set pricing, and what was your recommended CPT code again? 96127 is the recommended CPT code. There are a few other ones. Just would want to learn more about who your payer mix is and everything like that before I make general recommendations, but 96127 you'll have pretty large success with. We set our pricing per provider on a monthly or annual contract, but you can pay by the month. Our lowest upfront is $50 per month, and we go to about $75 a month generally for more larger groups that has a lot more in-depth reporting, claim submission. We even actually offer managed billing, so we can go into your EHR and submit the claims on your behalf. So it's kind of built around what are your goals for measurement-based care and for this process. We work with solo providers. We work with 5, 10, 15 provider groups. Our largest, I believe, is about 250. So we really understand, especially the differences in how to customize this process for different focuses, clinical focuses, for different modalities, for different sizes. And again, that code 96127, I feel like is what everybody wants to know as well. And again, about $3 to $5, maybe $7, $8 per measure. And again, that's really why we like to focus this as you scale it across the practice, across all your clients. That's really where the benefits begin. I know we are at 2:00. Being at the hour has never stopped me from talking. I don't know what Emily or Claire feel about that. This brings up EHRs. I'm curious what EHRs you integrate with. As of right now, we don't integrate with many of the traditional behavioral health ones like Therapy Notes, Simple Practice, Therapy Appointments, Theranest. Unfortunately, the limitation is generally on the EHR side. They are not built to allow for kind of third parties to push data into them. We are talking to them. We are trying to figure out how we can do this. Some of the larger scale EHRs, I'm not saying yes or no. We try to kind of go for this on a case-by-case basis, but your Carios, Advanced MDs, even your Athena types, which I think are kind of a next tier up in EHR, that's really where we can kind of build in much more seamless kind of day one type integrations. I hope that answered your question. And if not, you can type in more. So I'm still here. Kasey, I don't know if we have an official policy. If other questions come up, I'm happy to stick around. By all means, I don't know what your day looks like, but if you,
I'm good until there's no more questions.
Right. And hopefully we didn't scare them away with that. Come on. So I think we have run out of questions, but again, I think the Blueprint website is in the chat. I think you'll see it on the slides as we send them out. Kasey's information also in the chat as well. Thank you, Emily, for sharing that. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and more importantly, thank you. Not a question, just saying thank you, TK. I appreciate it.
So nice. I love nice people.
Yes, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think one of the best parts for me personally, not being a clinician, but working in this field, is you are all the most supportive people and the most amazing people to speak to, because at the end of the day, you are truly trying to seek the best in the people you talk to and communicate with and interact with. And it's just always a pleasure to speak with therapists and the clinician owners and everyone, because there's just such honest and supportive conversation. So thank you for that. Thank you, Kasey. I think in all of my conversations, there really is this gap between I'm a clinician and I'm moving to a business, and it is certainly a hard transition to make. And it's people like you that really help support and train these clinicians to become business leaders, to continue to develop and expand their offering to support the people and to support why they got into this field in the first place.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I can appreciate it. I can definitely always tell when there are companies like Blueprint and like you and Claire who really do care. So that means a lot. And thank you. And thank you, Chris, I think Chris introduced me to you're the best, Chris.
You are, Chris. Hi, Chris. And bye, Chris, and bye everybody else. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope to hear from some of you soon. But with that, Kasey, wonderful again to finally do this with you, and excited to hopefully have some more of these conversations in the future.
Sure. Sounds great.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.